and welcome back to Darvanalee Designs Studio. For those that don't know, my name's Nicole Reed and today we are here for another sewing tutorial, and today we're going to be making something for the dining room. We are going to be making these cute little, really easy, beginner friendly placemats that are reversible, and then once we've made our placemats, we're going to make this gorgeous matching bread basket out of one of the placemats. So let's get started. So there are a few things that you're going to need today for your bread basket and placemats. You are going to need some fabric, a lining, and what I'm calling a lining, so the back of your placemat and the front of your placemat. And you're also going to need some Shapeflex 101. I'll get into the sizes that you need in a moment, but you're going to need approximately about 1 meter of each one, depending how many that you're going to make. And you need about 1 meter the same for the interfacing as well. Alright, so once you've got your fabric, you've chose your fabric, you're also going to need some wonder clips and some pins. You're going to need some cutting tools, so you're going to need a rotary cutter. You're also going to need some pinking shears and some thread snips. You're also going to need your tailor's awl, some matching thread to your fabric, a turning tool, and you're also going to need a pen, and you're going to need some patchwork rulers as well, and a small square patchwork ruler, so at least 3 inches in size. So and you're also going to need your iron and your ironing pad, and of course a working sewing machine. Okay, so once you've selected your fabric, you need to make a few cuts. For our actual fabric, and I like to use cotton fabric, this has been pre-washed because I used it for another project, so this one had already been pre-washed, both of these fabrics, and I had about 1.50 meters left of each one from the project, so I had put that aside and I had washed it. Prior to coming on camera, I have pressed it, and I have also used some best press on that. Whatever starch you like to use, just go ahead and use that, but you definitely want to wash these and wash your fabric, and you also want to press and everything before you cut. All right, so you're going to need and as I said, I am using 100% quilting cotton, but you can use linen, you can use a cotton linen blend, whatever you like to use for home decor. But we go through these so quickly. Having kids, they're not very clean, and sometimes stains just don't come out of them, so I wash them and wash them and wash them until they pretty much fall apart, and then I'll just make a new set. Alright, so we need a backing and a front of our placemat. So you want to cut these at 18 inches on the long side, and on the short side you want to cut it at 12 inches, and that's the same for both of them. And next you're going to cut your interfacing, and your interfacing is actually going to be just that little bit smaller. Okay, so your long edge is going to be 17 inches, and your short edge is going to be 11, and that's just going to bring it in a little bit from the sides and reduce some of that bulk, because we want our placemats to lay flat. You don't want to have bulk in the seams, and if you put a cup on it and it falls over. So I learned from my mistakes. So just make sure that you bring your interfacing in a little bit, and I find having it 1/2 inch off the sides is a really good way to go. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to grab our iron and our ironing pad. We're going to get the front fabric. Okay, so once you've cut that, you're going to lay that down, and hopefully we can see this, and then we are going to get our interfacing, and one side is bumpy and one side is smooth. Now this is a woven interfacing. I prefer to use woven interfacings for this sort of stuff because it just works a little bit better. It gives a little bit more stability without having all the bulk, because I want to store these. But if you've got room, like if you've got a buffet where you store your placemats and you've got room in there to have them with fusible fleece or even batting, go right ahead, you can do that. But I prefer not to have them that way because I don't have a lot of room in my kitchen, so storage is a premium. All right, so once we've got our interfacing down on the wrong side of our fabric, and you just want to center that. Get as closest to the center as you can. Then I'm just going to turn it because my little ironing pad's not big enough. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to press it. Now, I generally have my iron set to a warm setting around about the silk mark, maybe just a little bit more with a woven interfacing. And then I'm just going to press that into place. And it will take a couple of seconds for it to adhere. But you can see there that it's not coming away from the fabric. And then I'm just going to work my way down. Just pressing that into place. Making sure that all my corners are stuck down, and that's right to go. Alright, so we can put the ironing pad away for a moment and move our iron out of the way. And next what you're going to do is you're going to grab your backing. Okay, we're going to turn our piece over. Okay, and then we're going to place them right sides together and just smooth them all out. Again, this has all been prepped before I got on camera, so it's been washed, it's been ironed, it's been trimmed up to the size and everything like that. So you can see there that it's all lining up. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to make a mark, and I just generally do about 4 inches just using my mat. Make a mark here and do the same here. So it's about 4 inches, and then this is the part that we're going to leave open, and then I just draw the line. Okay. And now I can pin the rest of that without a problem. Pin the top. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to head over to the sewing machine, and we're going to start at this point here, and we're going to stitch all the way around. But we're going to use the edge of our presser foot just to give us that little bit wider seam, and then that way we've got plenty to trim off, we've got plenty to turn in, and it'll make this opening sit a lot more flat and more straight as well. So a lot straighter than what it would be if we only had 1/4 of an inch to work with. So just I'll show you in a moment on the machine how I do that. Okay, so we're here at the machine, and basically what I'm doing is you can see here I've made my mark. Now I'm going to put that underneath my presser foot and just pop that down, and I'm going to put the needle in the down position. So you can see there that that's about 1/4 of an inch, and it's lining up with the edge here, but that is going to be too small to work with when we do the top stitching, so I want to bring my fabric to line up with this edge here. Okay, so I'm going to just take the needle out of the down position, lift my presser foot again, and I'm going to move over, and you can see here on there's lines on my plate on my sewing machine, and I'm going to come towards the 3/8. It's not quite 3/8, it's getting pretty close. If you find it easier, just use the 3/8 mark, that's fine. But I'm just, as you can see, my fabric hasn't come too far past the presser foot there, and that's what I'm going to use. It's just going to give me that little bit more to work with when I turn it through. All right, so we put the needle in the down position. We're just going to do 1 stitch, and then we'll go back and do a stitch. And then what I'm going to do is, I like to do this, it's just a little trick that I've learnt. I just lift it up, and I'm going to turn my fabric, and I'm going to actually sew a couple of stitches off the fabric, and then I'm just going to back stitch, and that'll stop me right where I was starting. Okay, lift it back up, and I am going to now continue sewing all the way around. And when I get back to that next mark where I've got to stop, what I'll do is I'll do exactly what I just did then. All right, so let's get sewing. Now, as you come up to the corner, you just want to slow down a little bit because we don't want to go too far. If you do, that's fine. You can just go back a little bit. With the needle in the down position, we're going to pivot. Okay, put that back down again, and you can see my fabric hasn't gone past that. presser foot, and we can go again. Take your pins out as you're going. Okay, so you can see we're coming up to where I've made that mark. I'm going to stitch right up to that mark, and then I'm going to leave my needle in the down position. I'm going to pivot, and then I'm going to sew off. If you go a little bit past, it's okay. So just pivot. Back stitch on there. Sew off again. Alright, so we have now stitched our placemat into place. Alright, so you can see there, and I'll just bring that up a little bit closer, you can see there that I've got quite a wide seam, and on this part here, this is where I've sewn off. Okay, and that just makes it a little bit easier when we're turning, and it just gives you a nice straight edge. You still have a little bit of fiddling to do, but not too much. Alright, I've got pins everywhere. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to get our pinking shears, and we're going to start on one of the short edges, and we're just going to trim off but as you can see, we haven't gone into the stitching. Okay, so you just want to get as close as you can to the stitching without cutting into it. And what that's going to do is just reduce some of the bulk. Okay, next we're going to come along, and we're going to come up to that first point where we started. So we want to go up, okay, to where we stitched, and then you're just going to get your thread snips, and you're going to snip it off. Okay, but we're not going to cut this bit where our opening is. Next, we're just going to come down to this long one, and we're going to trim along all the way around to the next part of the opening. And all we're doing is just taking out a little bit of the bulk, and it's just going to make it super easy when it comes time to top stitching. And then you just stop just before where you stop stitching. Okay, so that's our opening. Get rid of any threads that are going to be a little bit of a problem when you're turning through. And next what we're going to do is we're just going to turn it through. So get the opening, pop your hand in, go down to one corner, go down to the other corner, and just pull that through. And I just poke it out with my fingernails as much as I can, each corner. When I can find them. Alright, okay, it's sometimes you just got to get your little poking tool. You can use a chopstick, you can use the end of your pen. I wouldn't recommend you use the end of your scissors, because you can run the risk of poking right through. Just get them out. Okay, and next what we're going to do is what I call rolling my seams. So basically all I'm going to do is between my fingers I'm just going to roll the seam. So you can see there it's just rolling in my fingers, and it's just making that seam sit a little bit flatter. And I do that all the way around, and I'm not going to worry about the opening just yet. Okay, and I just roll that seam all the way around. And what that does is it makes the back and the front line up and the seams sit nice and even. Okay, just roll that all the way around. Then you're going to grab your iron and your ironing pad, and we're going to give it a really good press. It's sort of like your finger pressing it before you actually press it. So you can see there, they're laying nice and straight. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab my iron and ironing pad, and we're going to give that a really good press. And as you're going, you may have to roll those seams again, but you should be right. Okay. Now, if you get a point of your, if you get to your corner and it hasn't popped out all the way, just grab a pin and just give that a little bit of encouragement. Now, you don't want to pull too hard, you just want to give it a gentle nudge. Sometimes it'll come out, sometimes it won't. Okay, so now we're going to work our open area. Now, when you do this, you don't want to push it so far in that you get a divot, okay, or it looks really wobbly or anything like that. You just want to, and this is where that little tip comes in handy. You want to just let it gently fold in, and you want to get a nice straight line. Okay, so you might have to play around with it. I like to just use my fingers as opposed to really putting any heat on it at this point, and that gives me a chance to play around before I really set that crease. So you can see there, it just wants to fold in quite nicely, and then I'm just going to turn that around and do the same thing with the other side and just let it gently come in. Okay, so you can see there, it's just lining up really nice, looks pretty straight. I mean, you're always going to get some that will give you a little bit of grief, and you might not get it as straight as you like, but if you just play around with it, okay, you'll find that it will come together quite easily. And I've just been using that little tip there for quite a little while now for these, and I forget where I think I've seen it on Pinterest. I'll have to find it, but yeah, I've been using that little tip because I always struggle with these openings when you've got a straight line. And you can see there that that's nice and straight. And now I'll put the iron onto that. And really press that into place. So I am really happy with how that's looking. I can take away the ironing pad, get the iron out of the way, and you can see there that we've got a nice straight line. This could probably go in just a touch more. It's fine. All right, so now what I'm going to do is we're going to head back over to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch that in place. All right, just starting up in one corner, and I don't start right in the corner, I come down a little way, about 1/2 inch I come down. And basically why I do that is because I don't backstitch at the beginning, and because this is essentially, these are reversible, you could use either side. I don't want that little bird's nest that you sometimes get from backstitching. So what I do is I come about 1/2 inch down from the corner, and then I will just start there, and I will just start stitching. And I'm just using a 1/4 inch seam allowance for the top stitching. I think it looks very effective on placemats as opposed to a real narrow one. And I'm just using, as you can see, I'm not using the edge of the presser foot now, I'm actually using the toe of the presser foot. Okay, and that is going to give me a nice straight line. So basically I'm lining that edge of the fabric up with that toe of the 1/4 inch, and that's going to give me a nice neat straight line. Okay, and then we just continue all the way around till we get back to where we started, and we'll do our back stitch then. Okay, so as you come up to the last corner, you just want to take it slow so you don't overshoot. You're going to stop about 1/4 inch away from the edge. You're going to pivot with the needle in the down position, and then you're going to stitch up to where you started with your stitching. You're going to go past about 2 stitches, and then you're going to do a back stitch for about 3 stitches, and then that's it. We are done. And what that does is that gives you a really nice finish on the back. So I'll get rid of my threads. Okay, and I'll just bring that up a little bit closer for you so you can see here, this is where I've started and stopped. So when I started, I just started sewing. When I've come back around, that's when I've done my back stitch. So you can see there's no little bird's nest or loop, and there's no loop or bird's nest on the front. Okay, and that's why I do it that way. But that's it, that's our placemat. Okay, so we've made our placemat. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn it into a bread basket, so a matching bread basket. So we've got a whole set then. So basically what you need to do is you need to have your right side of your placemat facing up, and then you're going to take one of your short ends and you're going to bring it over, and you're going to finger press that, and you're going to line up your edges. Okay, and I like to use some clips here for that, so we'll just pop some clips in there. Just makes it easy to line everything up. Grab another one. Okay, so we know that the sides there are lining up, and then we're just going to make sure that that's all lining up on this side as well. Okay. And again on this side. Now you can just finger press this folded area here, but I like to press it with my iron because it's actually going to help me when it comes time to boxing up. So grab your ironing pad and your iron, and then just give it a good press. Okay, we just want to create a crease. Alright, so once you've done that, you're going to head over to the sewing machine, and where you stitched your top stitching when you made the placemat is where you are going to stitch again. So you're going to come off, starting down at the fold, you're going to stitch, and then you're going to do a back stitch at the end here. Okay, so you're going to stitch this down, and basically what you're going to do is you're going to stitch a 1/4 inch. You're going to do a reverse at the beginning and at the end, and then what you're going to do is just follow that line that you've already stitched. Okay, now we don't want a real big wide seam here because you're actually going to be able to see that, and we're going to start with the needle in the down position. I've removed my clip already, and you just grab your tailor's awl and just give it a little bit of a helping hand. It's a little bit thick there to start with, and then just do a back stitch and then continue on down, and just remove your clips as you're going. And when you get down to the bottom, make sure that you do a back stitch as well. Okay, now I'll take that out. Remove our threads, and we're going to do exactly the same thing for the other side. Now just make sure that you are using the stitch mark that you've already got on your placemat as your stitching guide. And a back stitch. Okay, alright, next we'll move on to the next step. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to, where our fold is in here, where we've creased it, we're going to take this top bit and we're going to stick our hands in and we're going to create like a triangle, and we're going to line that seam up with that crease we made earlier. Okay, so just having a look in there, I don't know if you can see that or not. You're basically going to just line this up with that crease, and then you're going to lay it flat as you can. And I like to finger press the seam open at this point. Okay, and grab our ironing pad again and our iron. And making sure that we're definitely lined up on that crease. So if you fold it again, you can see there that that seam is going nicely in there, and this is even on both sides. Okay, so we know that that is now sitting where it should be. And at this stage, just to give it a little bit of a helping hand, I like to just give it a little bit of a press just to flatten that seam out, and then just wait for that to cool a little bit. We're going to grab our little ruler and on this straight edge here, I'll just move my ironing pad, make it a bit easier to see. So I'm just going to move everything out of the way. Okay, and so on this edge here, I'm going to measure 3 inches from this point. So I'm going to line the 3 inches up on this fold here. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my marking pen, and I'm just going to make a 3-inch mark there. Then I'm going to do exactly the same thing this way. So I'm going to come down 1, 2, 3, and then mark that there. Okay, and you can see here that I've just lined my ruler up on each one. So you can see there, there's 3. So 1, 2, 3 this way, made a mark. 1, 2, 3 this way, made a mark. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to place my ruler on, and I'm going to line up those marks I just made, and I'm going to draw a line, and that's the line I'm going to stitch on. Okay, so I've just joined them at the bottom, not at the top here where I've come in, at the bottom on the fold. Okay, so you can see that okay. Alright, so I'm going to head over to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch along that line, and I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to stitch on that line, and you're going to do a back stitch at the beginning and at the end. And you're going to repeat that for the other side. Okay, so we've done that and we've got that there, and now what we're going to do is we're going to do the other side. Again, we're just going to make sure that we've got that nice crease there, so you can see it there. You may have to give it another little bit of a finger press, but that's okay. And then we're going to do exactly the same thing, and we're going to line that up and get it to lay flat. Okay, and this time it might be a little bit easier because we do have that seam already there, so we can match that up. Now we just wanted to get it, again, we're going to press that open with our finger, get it to lay as flat as possible, make sure that it is following along that crease mark, which I can see that it is. Could be a little bit fiddly to get it to lay flat, just manipulate it. Make sure that it is lining up, and I can feel that there. Grab your ironing pad again, just give it a nice press. It just helps to with ease of sewing. Alright, Press that seam open. Just going to fold that over and double check that that is actually lining up with that. Okay. Alright. Okay, just pop that iron out of the way. And again, we're going to mark the 3-inch. Get that out of the way. So I don't know if you can see this or not, but I've got a lot of lines on this ruler. So you can see here that this center line is actually lining up with that seam, and then I've just marked my 3-inch. So that's another way that you can do it as well, to make sure that you've got it squared. And the point of the bag is right into, it looks like what it looks like a, all the lines are coming into one spot in the center, because this is a 6-inch ruler. So you can see there, I can see the point of the pouch right there, so I know that everything is lining up, and I've got my 3-inch lining up on this fold here, and 3-inch mark lining up on this fold, and then this is going into the center, and I know that that is lining up nicely. Okay, and then I'm just going to put my ruler on there and find at the fold, line them up and make a line, and then head over to the sewing machine and stitch that down. Don't forget to back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Okay, so at this point you can actually trim these off, and if you do, you're going to have to zigzag the edge of it or use your serger. I'm actually not going to do that. I'm actually just going to turn this in, and I'm going to leave them into the bottom of the bag just to give it a little bit more stability in the bottom. Okay, and I'm going to grab my, so you can see there, they're just in the bottom like that. Okay, and I'm just going to grab my iron, and I'm just going to press everything. Now this is totally washable. You can wash this without a problem at all. So you want to give it a really good press all the way around. Okay. Now the good thing about this, it's not a really heavy basket, so you can just fold it up and store it into with your placemats, and you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to turn the sides down, and you would have seen me do this with other baskets that I've made on the channel. Okay, making sure that you can see there that that's just folded over, so I'm just going to give that another press to open it up. Make sure that it's pressed nice and open. Okay, so that's now open. And then we're just going to roll it over just a little bit. Okay. So we've just rolled that over a little bit, so you can see that it's got a little bit of a cuff. Now you can just do a couple of little hand stitches there to hold it in place if you want to, or you don't have to. That's entirely up to you, because I know not everybody likes to do hand stitching. And then I'm just going to give that another press again. Okay, so that is just turned down. Now you can turn it down. I turn it down about 1.5 inches. You can turn it down a little bit more if you want to. If you wanted a more shallow basket, you can have it down even further. I tend to like it at about 1.5, and that gives me a measurement Just let me see, just to make sure. That gives me a measurement of about 5 inches, and that's enough to just chuck some sliced bread in there or some dinner rolls or something like that. All right, so the next step we need to do is actually just top stitch this in place. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take off my toolbox there off my machine. Okay, so we're going to start in a seam, and we're just going to do a 1/4 inch top stitch all the way around, starting with the needle in the down position and just taking it real slow because we are going through a little bit of bulk here, and you might need your tailor's awl to give you a little bit of a helping hand. There's no point in straining our machine or breaking a needle or anything like that, so we just take it nice and slow on our seams. And what this is going to do is just hold our turnover in place, or our little cuff or fold over, whatever you want to call it. And as you can see, I'm just using a 1/4 inch, just adjusting as I go, making sure everything's sitting nice and flat. And then when we get back around to this side again, we'll do our back stitch then to finish off. And again, we're coming up to that seam, so I just take it a little bit slower, do a back stitch, and that's it. And there you have it, a nice little bread basket for your sliced bread or for your dinner rolls. And as you can see, they fold up into nice little pile and don't take up much room at all. And I just fold that down and place it on like that, and there you go. Pull out your placemats, pop in your bread, and you're ready to go for dinner. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me today. I really do hope that you enjoyed this quick tutorial on how to make the reversible placemats along with the matching bread basket. Super quick and easy to make. Great for a beginner friendly, great for a gift for someone as well, and it's going to dress up your dining room in no time at all. Alright, so if you liked this video today, don't forget to give it a thumbs up down below, share it with your friends across the social medias, and also if you're new, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it, and then that way you won't miss out on any future posts. Until next time, happy sewing, and I'll see you all then. Bye for now!